Hey, Juliet.
Hey.
Hey. Um, so jumping straight in, last week we were talking about well, it's last week for anyone
A
watching.
moment ago.
Yeah, but for us it was like 30 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Um, we were talking about vulnerability, and we talked probably about the why, the value of being vulnerable or bringing your whole self to work. And it was quite a storytelling sort of episode, wasn't it? We were just reflecting. And I liked what you said afterwards to me. I said, "How was that?" And you said, "It was nice. We were both really vulnerable." So I hadn't clocked it while we were doing it, but we were living it, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
But we said it might be useful to jump into some of the how.
Yeah.
So we've landed the why it's useful to be vulnerable, but it might be useful, yeah, to help people understand. So how might I start doing that if vulnerability feels a bit scary to me?
Mm.
Yeah. So shall I start the timer
Yeah.
and you can start into some of the how for 7.5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, maybe, obviously we facilitate the workshops and programs. So the first thing that comes to mind to me is how we do it when we're in that kind of space, which I appreciate isn't like your day
Mm.
to day space necessarily in a workplace. Um, but I think the first thing we do is we model it. So
Yeah.
from the very beginning and how we introduce ourselves, or if we're doing a check-in, we tend to share something more of ourselves than people might normally.
Mm.
And it might be very subtle. And we sort of read the room and the tone, and just see what comes through. It may be something as simple as, I don't have the expertise you have. I don't know your jobs like you do. I don't know your business like you
Mm.
do. But what I can do here as a facilitator is help you have great conversations and just offer processes that enable you to do that. So
Yeah. That's really
letting
nice because
go of
it,
any expertise in terms of a
yeah.
knowledge is actually a place of vulnerability in our culture.
Well,
Um,
and what it really clearly does as well is states our role in the room in both a confident and vulnerable way. We're not going to pretend to know what you know.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
That's really nice. Yeah, lovely.
yeah. Um, And the other way in is people get that trust is an important aspect of working together
Mm.
on projects and in teams. So sharing with them the trust equation, which I think we've talked about before, haven't we? And,
Yeah, we
and
did an episode on that.
yeah, the intimacy aspect of that is a way for us to frame, okay, so now we're going to practice that and we're going to invite each other to share a little bit more than we normally would. And one of the frameworks that we use to help people have some safety within that, because it's not about sharing absolutely everything about yourself, is
No,
to do
doesn't
the
have to be
three.
any facts, does it?
Yeah, no. So we do the private, obviously there's private things about you. You don't need to tell anyone, and please don't feel any pressure to. And then you've got the public space, the things people your colleagues know about you already. But in between those two, there is a different space, which is the personal space. So there might be something about you that you've never shared with your colleagues that you could. And that might help them to see you in a different way, or just know something about you and get a different feeling for who you are. So that's one way as well to encourage people, because you're giving some encouragement, but also some safety. Um,
Yeah.
what comes to mind for
Yeah.
you? Because there's obviously lots of things we do, but
Well, I was with a group earlier this week, and it was quite a large group, about 40 people, and we were looking to unearth kind of organisational purpose. We were starting to get into conversation about what was important to them, and so we started with, I love this question that we offered them, which was, think of a time when something happened that made your heart sing or your blood boil.
yeah,
And so they were sharing these stories, and I was hearing as I was walking around the room, stories about kids. I was hearing stories about work. There were stories about the news, really global
yeah,
stuff. There was all of this mix of stories. There was laughter. There was, calm nature on some tables. And so they shared all these stories, and then we said, okay, and so now get back into conversation with the people you're in. What might that tell you about what's meaningful to you or
mm,
important to you? And it was a really lovely way into both unearthing what might be important to us, One person was like, oh, I think that probably tells me that actually fairness is really important to me. And I hadn't quite noticed how important it is. But when I notice something that's unfair, it makes my blood boil.
Yeah.
And it was really helping people notice that about themselves and share it with others, but in a very safe way. We're not saying, tell us about when your father died or tell us about this. It was, most people will have shared something that was in that personal space or even in the public space. But the analysis or the conversation that followed was much more about, what does that mean about who I am as a person? It was really lovely, actually, but very, very safe, very gentle.
And that reminds me of the power of a good question. And people, in our experience, I'm sure you agree, are really ready to do this.
Yeah.
And yet, so often on a day-to-day basis, you rock up at the office, you go and sit at your desk, or you join a call. There's no space for it.
Yeah.
And it's head down, get on with the task, join the call, what are we here for, agenda. So there's really something, and this came up with another client we've been working with, about creating the spaces for more meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
But of course, it does require that people start to have a sense of the connections between this and doing the work more effectively.
Yeah. Because this can feel like a luxury.
Yeah, it's not just to have a nice conversation. It's because it shifts the quality of the relationship, which then underpins the work. So it's like creating the social soil, as we sometimes call it.
Yeah.
Some really good compost from which the projects and the work we do then grows.
You can imagine, I'm picturing, someone coming out of a meeting and that sort of irate sense of it was a hard meeting or it was a bad meeting. And of course, what could follow is a colleague saying, well, what happened? And that might be useful in some ways to debrief, to sort of say it all out loud. But to your point of great questions, a great question that someone could ask might be, what is it about what happened that's made you feel this way? Or even if we're not ready to ask that of each other, maybe to ask ourselves, what is it about what just happened that's making me feel this angry? Because I think part of vulnerability is about tuning into, noticing how you are in the moment, even if you can't really name it.
Yes. It's bringing the emotions into our awareness. But the stereotype in business is there's no place for that at work, which, even if we don't say that explicitly, is often in the water we're swimming in.
Yeah. Well, the emotions are always there, aren't they? You can't stop someone feeling angry or feeling happy. All we're doing is stopping them naming it.
Yeah.
And getting behind it or underneath it.
That's right. So yes.
It's inconvenient, but it's true. So we can tell people, or we can create spaces where people don't feel like they can talk about their emotions or their feelings, but it doesn't stop them having them. That's the inconvenient truth.
Well, exactly. Oh,
no, go on. Exactly.
Well, I was just going to say, and that's all underpinned by the neuroscience research that shows that our decisions are made, first of all, by our emotional brain and then post-rationalized with our logical, analytical thinking. So they are there and entwined in everything we do, say, decide. So it's more about recognizing that, welcoming them in and trying to understand what they're telling us, because emotions bring really useful information. But yeah, we could do a whole other conversation on.
We could, but I am going to ask you one last question because I think it'd be useful. So if we've established that vulnerability is incredibly useful for high performance, in order to build the relationships in which we can have high support, high challenge, to establish the why it's valuable. And I think what we're saying here is, and the first step of that might just be noticing how you are, before you even start to show that to other people. Any last snippets or gold nuggets for anyone going, okay, so how do I start noticing that? How might I notice what I'm feeling?
I was just taking a moment to pause like that, really.
Yeah.
Tune into your body rather than staying in your brain, and just noticing, are there any sensations or warmth or cool or something? How does your tummy feel? Are your shoulders tight? Does your forehead
Mm,
feel tight? So the emotions are expressed through somatically through your body. um, and then, okay, so that's happening. So often our body tells us before our thinking brain, that
nice.
we've been triggered and our emotions are there. So that's the way, one of the ways to tune into it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really lovely. And that's really doable even when you're sat at your desk. No one's going to see you.
Yeah.
That's a really easy takeaway, isn't it? To how am I feeling right now? Or what might be going on in my body?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Mm,
Thank you, Juliet. That was lush.
great. Thank you. See
Speak
you
to you soon.
later. Bye.
Bye.